Ladies and gentlemen, there he is, live on air. Farmer Jones, the one and only, the myth, the man, the legend, straight from the peninsula of ill repute, which we call Florida. And Farmer Jones is a regular guest, and we always love to have you on. How you been?
Good, man. A little stressed with what's going on in the legal world, but I'm glad to be back and thanks for having me. And I wanted to pick your brain and your expertise, Diamond. You have talked a lot about Occupy and the way you ran those excellent protests and the safe protests. I want to know the proper protocol for that. And then I'm going to give you an advance. My follow-up question is, what did the Black Lives Matter people do wrong? How did they not meet the protocol? How's that for a compound question?
Well, I think it's an excellent question. And before we get started, let's just send everyone over to your YouTube channel, Farmer Jones on YouTube. There'll be links below. Uh, Farmer Jones does nightly, daily podcasts and really is an excellent resource for current events. Are you still there, Farmer?
I'm here, yes, sir, buddy.
Okay,
Live.
I had a little bit of
Yeah.
silence over here. All right, so now let's go over what's going on first, and let's talk about protests in general. If you want to perform a public protest or a rally or a gathering, first of all, you need to know what it's for. And if we're talking about a political protest, Farmer, you need to follow certain rules. Each different state, each major city has a set of rules, but they all kind of overlap in some way of the protocol. Now, a lot of the marches I had went through multiple areas of a city like Philadelphia and ended up in a national park like at the Constitution Center. So therein lies multiple permits. Now, a lot of people are like saying, well, this is a protest. You don't need a permit. And that's where I come from. The groups of people I've been organizing are like, this is a protest. We don't need an effing permit. It's written in the Constitution. Well, yeah, it is written in the Constitution, but there is legal protocol at the local and state level that you also have to comply with because sometimes you're on private property. The only place you can legally protest without a permit in Philadelphia is on the sidewalk. The moment you step off the sidewalk onto grass or the street, you could be arrested if you do not have a permit.
Mm.
If you have a permit, then the police then become your liaison in Philadelphia, and they will actually support your movement around to protect you from being run over. You know, you tell the head cop guy, we want to go down 12th. And then they call ahead and they block the road off and they let you go down there. And then they work with you as you move around, so to speak. Now, what they require in this permit is a description of where you're going and what you're doing at each place. It doesn't matter what you want to do. You could take 10,000 people down Fifth Avenue and stop and stay there for 20 minutes and then make a left and go down whatever, as long as they know what your plan is and they can prepare for it the day before. It has to be honored because you filled out the permit and this is a constitutionally mandated march. So they have to shut down the traffic for you. They have to tell all the businesses there's a march coming
Good.
down here. They have to do that because it's protected. The moment you do not fill out any of the proper permits for the state, the city, or private property, like all of my marches, we ended at the Constitution Center. So we needed a separate permit from that national park, which is guaranteed under the Constitution to be given to you if you pay $25 and you fill out the little form. It could be for guns. It could be for the craziest thing. They cannot discriminate against you if you fill the form out. But the moment you fill the form out, the filler outer, being me, the organizer, is now liable for the event. So that is a lot of responsibility on the organizer that most people that organize marches do not want to take on. So therein lies the problem of what's happening today. These Black Lives Matter marches are against the powers that be. So they're not following proper protocol. They're not getting the permits. They're just organizing the events, and the entire event from the beginning is breaking the law at every level. Because the moment you don't have a permit, you can't leave the sidewalk, and then there's just violation after violation. So there's a good background on the general idea if you want to chime in now.
All right. Well, I love that. So that's the official rules. Now, when you do the march, let's go to the next step. You're saying the liability is on you because you signed the piece of paper. So what do you do to protect yourself from liability? Did I come through? Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things you have to do. The first thing you have to do is to understand about crowds, about agent provocateurs, about violent agitators, about agitators in general. And you have to know about all of what's happening in the activism world. There are agent provocateurs that are self assigned, there are agent provocateurs sent by the opposition to create chaos in these events because there are listen, farmer, there are nefarious people all across the world. There are bad cops, there are
Right.
good cops, there are bad citizens and good citizens, and there are people that just want to throw a monkey wrench into the system. So when you're organizing a march, you
You
need to,
froze.
well, we're not frozen over here. So trust me on that. When you
Okay.
organize a march, you need to properly train the crowd on how to react, how to locate provocateurs. It's simple. If you're the leader of the march, me, and I have 3,000 people in front of me, and I have a bullhorn or a mic, and before we go, I teach the crowd what an agent provocateur is. If you see someone with spray paint, breaking stuff, trying to agitate the crowd to be violent, point at them. If everyone in the crowd points at that person, they immediately become embarrassed, they become singled out, and they run away. Everyone says, "Who are you with?" Because no one in my marches are out there to break stuff, burn things down. We're out there to get a message across. That's the purpose of these constitutional marches and rallies, to protect our rights as citizens. We as citizens constitutionally have the right to redress any grievances we have against our local, state, or federal government at any time. That's why we're allowed to have guns and militias. That's why we have a constitution. But what I see now in the last decade is less and less of this, of the rules being followed, because protesters don't think there's any rules. But I mean, think about that logically. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of laws locally and state that surround public gatherings. You know, you can't beat people up and so on and so forth. So, oh, we've lost your connection, farmer. Are you there? What do you think about what I'm saying up till
I'm
now?
here. Yes, sir.
I'm going to kill my
I
camera
think you're
and we'll go with you. Go.
okay. All right. I think what you're saying is great. Now, you're saying you train the crowd, you train the protesters. You were going to do it with, the bullhorn up front. Is there more, shall we say, thorough training, more detailed training? Do you get trained? Who trains you? I mean, how do you build the structure out? Okay, where you have layers of organizers. How does that work, Diamond?
Well, the way we did it with the march against
Do I have
Monsanto,
you? Yeah, you're
yeah,
there.
the way we did it with the march against Monsanto is you set up an event on a social media platform like Facebook. Then you can send it out to every city in the world. And in the event page, it has a description of the event. And in the description, you lay out the framework of the event. For March Against Monsanto, it was family friendly, uh, to redress grievances that you have against the government. There, it is non-violent. It is all inclusive. All religions and races are included. So you lay out the framework in the description, and that the people that come will come based on the description. That there will be no violence tolerated. There's no drugs and alcohol. We are trying to send a message to our government, and the people that show up tend to be family oriented business owners, and they're ready to go. When you have a majority of people like that in your crowd, they can easily pick out provocateurs. And in the beginning, when you have a crowd of such excellent people like this, already organized, when you're giving the agent provocateur talk, which all of the organizers should do before they march, the provocateurs, you can watch them like shedding like fleas. A few dozen people leave the crowd because they have no friends there, no support there, and they know that they're going to be singled out. So that's the way you start preparing a successful, nonviolent, family oriented, all inclusive march to address something that's political.
Outstanding, man. What a great review. So let's go back to that liability section. Your name is on the permit application, the piece of paper. Now, what about insurance? Do you have to get insurance? What if something happens? They come after you and they say, Diamond, you didn't abide by the rules and somebody burned down this building. What happens?
Well, there's a couple of layers. If you were to fill out the paperwork as a business or a nonprofit, the nonprofits and the businesses all are required to have liability insurance at some level. So that covers you there. If you're a
All right,
citizen,
wait.
go ahead.
Let me make sure I got that. So if you're doing it from a nonprofit that is saying, say a Soros group, then he would have insurance for the nonprofit.
Exactly. So the nonprofits already have liability insurance by definition. And this is the advantage of you as a citizen organizing an event. Because if you put your name on there as a citizen and
Right.
not as a business, then the state or the city has liability insurance set up for you. So by constitutional law, if you want to do a protest, the city kicks in their insurance to cover it once you fill out that paperwork. If you do not fill out the paperwork,
Ah,
then you become liable. And if you have an illegal march and
right.
you organized it, you are the target. You can be sued to the nth degree. But once you fill out that paperwork as a citizen, you're protected from the city or the state with their liability for marches, which they already have in place.
That's great. Okay. Excellent. You know what? I'm going to kill my video too because it's breaking up and I think we'll just keep audio. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can do that without killing the feed. All right, there we are.
Oh,
Oh, look, my happy
beautiful.
shades.
It's perfect.
Nice one.
Yeah, way
Yeah.
better.
All
All
right.
right, so
So,
let's
yeah.
go with the
But wait a minute.
liability.
Wait. Let me just
Go ahead.
let me just take a quick look at that. I didn't realize that. That's wonderful, and this is why I wanted to pick your brain. Good stuff. So, if you go in as Joe Citizen and you fill out the form, then the liability there is by the city or the town. Okay, instead of you being employed by a nonprofit filling out the form.
Right.
Okay,
Now,
but
here's what's
you're still doing
critical.
it as a.
There's a
Okay, go
critical
ahead.
point. You have to know the size of the crowd. You have to know how many people are coming. If you say 2 to 5,000 and 50,000 show up, they may cancel it on you because the liability that they have set up does not cover that. So you have to be very good at estimating your crowd size and always estimate bigger because you want to be covered by the insurance. So when I thought 2 to 5,000 people were coming, I told them 5 to 10,000 just to be
Right,
safe. And that way the
right.
event
Okay,
goes off without a hitch. They see in the morning there's only a few thousand people, everything's a go,
I
and
lost you.
yeah. So they just want to know that you're telling the truth. And if that morning things don't look like what you put down there, they could cancel your event. Did you pick it up?
Oh man, no, it's breaking. I don't know if
Uh,
it's recording on your end. It might be. You were saying
yeah,
you do
absolutely.
5,000. If you're expecting 2 to 5, you tell them 5 to 10.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
and then that morning, what happens?
yeah, if it looks like everything that you've done is correct in the size of the crowd, then everything goes off as planned. If there are already 50,000 people there in the morning, your event will be canceled. So what
Right.
you don't
That's a
you
lot of
just
people to say, "Go home. We're canceled." How do you cancel an event when 50,000 people show up? That's a good trick.
if that many people don't have an organizer, they're not going to know what to do, trust me. These groups are mobs. They're controlled by one point man. The point man can make the mob go crazy or not. That's how they work. If you are not in control of the march to begin with, then it was never your march to begin with. But in my experience, anyone in that crowd will follow my directorate immediately. because they came there because of me. I mean, it's that
Right.
simple. Yeah, it's that simple.
All right. So you have good control. You have a disciplined crowd, a disciplined group. Excellent. That's great. All right. So now, what about the Black Lives Matter marches that turned violent and into riots? What did they do wrong that didn't comply with the protests when the media is calling these peaceful protests? And is there liability? And the reason I'm asking, right, is they've been funded. They're a corporate entity, nonprofit, structured internationally. I've done a little research. And the bottom line is you've got cities now claiming they have $500 million worth of damages. Minnesota, Minneapolis. Portland had what? I forgot how many millions of dollars worth of damages. And now they're trying to hit the federal government up for money to fix it. My thinking is, why in the hell don't they go right after Black Lives Matter? It's their protest. And if they don't have insurance, that's fine. They got what, 200 million coming in from multiple donors of corporate, what are we calling them? Multinational corporations. And then Soros just pledged another 200 million. So there's a nice piece of change there that they could go after and hold them liable, in my thinking. So what did they do wrong that potentially creates the liability for them?
Well, I can imagine that because this is a hot button topic, and remember that this was only allowed in Democratic cities for some reason. That can't be a coincidence. So what happens is
Right.
the ultra liberal people, a black guy just got murdered by a cop. This is a hot topic. You cannot not allow a protest without a permit at that point because you're going to have bad things happen. So they probably did the wrong thing in allowing protests to occur that had no permits. And then at that point, you've screwed your entire city because you have no protocol. You've just basically gave an unpermitted group, full range to do whatever they want, which is why things get out of hand. And then when police stand down
Interesting.
and let people light things on fire, that's ridiculous. But each of these cities has an organizer. They can find who organized the march initially. It's all on social media. It didn't happen through osmosis. You could track who said, come here at this time. And then that's the organizer, and you can blame them for what occurred. I'm sure pretty
Right.
legally. Yeah, legally. But here's the
Sure.
problem.
Especially,
Here,
well,
they set,
wait, right there
go ahead.
on that
Go ahead.
point, Diamond.
Yeah.
If the guy is the organizer, you locate him. Then the question is he directly
Yeah, right. It then becomes conspiracy to commit. You know what I mean? You could put that on anyone.
hook? Well, yeah, or it's a straight respondeat superior. It's the employee, right?
But here,
But if
but
it's an
here's
employee of the corporation, an official representative, you got the company nailed,
well, that's good.
right?
But when it comes to individual protests, if that organizer didn't fill out a permit, he's not liable. He's only liable for his own actions at that point. It's individual protesters that could break the law. So that's why the feds are out arresting citizens because there are no organizers of this. They're just criminals running the street, lighting fires, and spray painting shit. That's called criminals. That's not called a protest. So I love the fact that the federal
I
police
agree.
are in Washington picking these people up. They do not have a permit. They're not doing a political protest.
I lost you.
They're absolutely they're just animals destroying the city. They have no purpose. There's no purpose in what they're doing except crime.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, you said you could find out who organized it through social media. It's Joe Citizen, okay? Then you find out, is he an employee or a member or somehow related officially to the corporate entity, right? The nonprofit of Black Lives Matter, and thus get the hook into Black Lives Matter's wallet. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
See, not as, hey, this just
you would
spontaneously
yeah,
happened.
you would have to pin it on the kingpin. It might not be the organizer. There might be another connection to the organizer that is the funnel for, let's say, Black Lives Matter's money, where they send in the brick money. They send in the brick pallets. They send in the protest signs. These people got huge amounts of stuff sent to them, each of these protests in
Right.
each of these cities. So if you can follow the money and follow the person who was receiving that, then those are the people that are liable, especially if they're connected back to Black Lives Matter.
Of course, because they're having their employee go do evil deeds. I'm glad you mentioned the bricks because did we ever hear anywhere who in the hell was delivering those bricks? How hard is that to find out? Are the local police doing that? Is the FBI doing that? We're a month out. Where'd those bricks come from? Right?
Well,
Have you
well,
heard
far,
anything about that?
yeah, a guy that I graduated high school from, Chuck Ruchis, has been doing his own investigative work on those brick pallets. And about 4 weeks ago, he determined that the same company was delivering the bricks to Georgia, almost to every spot in the Southwest, Georgia, well, I would have to refer back to him, but it all came from the same Acme brick company in somewhere down in the Tennessee or whatever. So the same contracts were coming. So these guys were getting these flatbeds, driving around the country and dropping them at locations, being paid for by God knows who. And and Chuck was
Right.
determining this information from close-ups of the pallets and the receipts on them. So you just could find the barcode and then search the log. And they all came from the same company. I guarantee if you could get an audit on Black Lives Matter or those receipts, where they're coming from. I mean, this is basic detective work. You don't need the FBI and the CIA for this. It's basic, my
Exactly.
the guy I graduated high school for found out this information.
Exactly. Well, that's my point. So if it's the same company, you go, you pull the records, you send an investigator in there, you slap a subpoena on them, and you say, who paid for these bricks? Right? You delivered to Atlanta, you delivered to wherever. Who paid for that delivery? And you track it back. It's not hard to do. So
So
is
now,
anybody of law enforcement
yeah,
doing that, or are they
well,
giving them a free pass, or what?
that's that's my question. Why isn't it being done?
Right, right. So who should be doing it? The guy in Tennessee or the guy in Atlanta should be looking at Tennessee? I don't know. We'll see. Unbelievable. It's just like a stand down democratic, let's let this happen and wreck, cities, or it's, I don't know, but
I
it's unacceptable.
in my
It,
personal opinion, this is just to get Trump out of office. Period. This has nothing to do with anything else. That is their main motive.
oh, I agree. It's absolutely, in addition to being a communist push, they're installing chaos. They got the useful idiots out there creating terror and chaos. Soros has come in and funded district attorneys and made sure these are the people that won't prosecute people. Cuomo and de Blasio in New York managed to just mysteriously, coincidentally, get a law passed that says violent felonies are not having bail hearings. They're being released on appearance tickets. And then suddenly this happens, and they just kept churning 500, 700 people they arrested. Give them an appearance ticket, they're out in a matter of hours, continuing to wreck the city. I'm telling you, I believe they're involved in the conspiracy, absolutely, to facilitate mayhem. They should be arrested for, and we said this the other day when we chat, right, for treason, because they're not upholding their law. They are not upholding the Constitution. They are intentionally acting to undermine it. And at the very least, it's sedition. It's facilitating an insurgency to overthrow the government. Not yet, but they're not actually attacking Trump directly. But that argument, that brings it to the level of treason. If you tie it into the discussion, like we said the other day, that this is being funded by foreign states and foreign governments, now you have a foreign government trying to overthrow our government. It becomes an act of war. That could trigger martial law. I don't know. I don't want to go there yet, but these guys need to be looked at, but nobody's prosecuting because they're afraid it'll be called politically weaponizing the Justice Department. My position on that is okay, sure, that's your defense. Tell it to the judge. You're being held without bail. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, what I see is an epic rift in America's citizenry. Okay, we have half of the people that are constitutionally capable of standing up for their rights. And those would be considered from libertarian to conservative. The majority of them are against what's being allowed. And let me just reiterate what's being allowed.
Right.
72 hours ago, someone punched a cop in the face, and 48 hours ago, they were released from jail without bail. That wouldn't happen anywhere ever. Infinity. except in this weird dystopian future we're living in. You could punch a cop in the face and be released the next day without bail. That is unheard of. So that's right now we're living in a state of lawlessness. The protocols that are written down, the laws are not being followed. And I want to know why. That's my question.
Well, it could because a couple of months ago I did a show with George Webb and Jeffrey Prager, and he, as a ex-military, ex-DIA, guy, mentioned the unconventional warfare manual. I will send you the link to it. A couple of my viewers posted the link, okay? And
We
it's
did a
from the U.S.
we did a show on that.
Well, yeah, but did we put that link up? Because the
Absolutely.
bottom line is, man, this is how it's Special Operations Manual of Unconventional Warfare, of how you facilitate an insurgency or an overthrow or a coup within a country. So our manual is being used against us. Who's doing it? Is it our crazy generals in the continuity of government program in our country? They're speaking against Trump, and they may turn this into a military coup. Or is it a foreign nation doing it that is just following the military guide? Or is it private citizens? You know, I hate to keep pointing the finger at Soros, following this guide because it is available. But this is a step-by-step approach on how to create chaos within a country. And then you replace the police. That's why they went from George Floyd, to defund the police. And look at how it goes. Simultaneously, it's a multi-layer attack, and it's done brilliantly. I hate to admit it, but it's diabolical, but it is a brilliant plan. And this COVID bullshit is all about putting people in their houses. You quarantine sick people. When you put non-sick people in their house, it's called house arrest. On what basis? There's a constitutional violation. This is an outrage, and that's part of the plan. You've created curfews and a house arrest of the whole country, essentially the whole world, while this horseshit takes place. Now you've got the riots and chaos on the street. You've got cops standing down. You've got DAs not prosecuting. And it's step by step out of the friggin' manual. This is a problem.
Well, let's talk about some more problems. Almost up to 50% of the COVID-19 tests being used in the US could potentially be faulty with incorrect data.
Right.
So there are people being held on house arrest in their homes because they won't sign certificates of self-quarantine for 14 days after they got a positive COVID test. These tests are not reliable.
Right.
So we're illegally detaining people on. I'll tell you what, the first thing to get thrown out in a court hearing is bad medical information. The breathalyzer isn't even allowed
I
because it's
agree.
potentially dangerous. So a COVID-19 test would never be allowed in a court of law at this point because they're so unreliable. It's almost like we could throw out every case based on the unreliability of COVID-19. Breathalyzers are 99.9% more accurate than COVID-19 tests, and they are still inadmissible. Can you speak to that?
They're not inadmissible. The way you challenge a breathalyzer test is you challenge the calibration of the machine.
Yeah.
I've done it. The other thing is, on the COVID test, I'm glad you mentioned this. I had a couple of long discussions. I think these stupid things, and I mentioned this on the show a couple of nights ago, and I say, all right, campers, let's review. We've established these stupid tests are authorized by, what is it called, an emergency or EUA, emergency use authorization. They have not been certified by the FDA. They are coming out and based on the self-regulatory decisions and representations of the companies manufacturing them. However, you know there's reports out there of unused swabs being sent into labs coming back positive. Wonderful. So my argument is, let's go into court. Oh, it's outrageous. Let's go into court and get an injunction against the FDA from using these fucking tests and say, hey, guess what? Until you certify them from an independent lab to show that they're real, show the accuracy and the accuracy, period, and do the calibration on it like you would on the machine, they can't be used. That's the way I would attack that. I mean, if you want to step it up, you have to go for a whole conspiracy and a fraud claim against this whole thing.
Farmer,
Big case, but I don't know. Yes,
Farmer,
sir.
It is a fraud. We've been in this pandemic for 7.5 months. 7 months. I'll say 7 months,
I
and
know. I
they
agree.
don't have a test that has good efficacy, 99.9% uh, perfect results. That is the BS that the public needs to start screaming about. It's impossible that in 7 months that we don't have a 99.9% test that's accurate. The tests are inaccurate on purpose. There is an agenda here, and it has nothing to
Yes.
do with a pandemic. For goodness sakes.
Yeah. Well, the pandemic is an agenda. Okay. How many people get the flu every year? And when do we shut down the government? We're getting into the meat of this here, Diamond. But the point is, you're absolutely right. It is a fraud, and they need to be stopped from doing it. You don't just sue them, you get an injunction up front. Just the way when Trump does an executive order, within days, there's an injunction out of Hawaii or the Ninth Circuit saying, oh, the whole country is enjoined from doing this. And then they litigate it for whatever, 2 years, okay? Or maybe to the first hearing and then they release the injunction. But usually it's extended. How come our constitutional rights aren't, and these guys aren't being smashed down by us right now, we the people, and saying, hold it, you need to show an evidentiary hearing that any of this applies. Where's the burden of proof? These are fundamental.
Right when you got to the good part, you got cut off. And let's talk about Texas. They just reduced the number of COVID-19 positives over the last 2 weeks during the surge by
Yeah,
3,000 cases. Over 3,000 cases taken off
okay.
the books in Texas. And this is happening. This happened in Colorado a month ago. They took off almost 1,000 cases because they were lies. There's a case coming in from
Right,
Florida where someone in a motorcycle accident died of COVID that was killed by a motorcycle
right. I talked
accident.
about that.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's insane. And
right,
now today
right.
they announced that they're group testing. They're going to put 4 or 5 swabs in one test. And if it comes up positive, all 5 people will get counted as a positive. Then they're going to retest all 5. And then if only 3 of them are positive, those 3 will get added and the other 2 won't. So that will be a total of 8 positives for 3 positives in 2 tests that will go on the numbers. This is what we're dealing with. This is not a pandemic. It's a scam-demic based on numbers. Same thing with climate change or anything else. Bill Gates had the book 6 weeks ago on his table when he did an interview, How to Lie with Statistics. And
I
people
love it.
closed up on it. I mean, it's right in your face.
Right. But my point was, how come nobody's dove into court to get an injunction from them doing this? And then the stupidity with the face masks. You've got a couple of cases here and there. But again, if you're making an emergency order, how do you have a hearing a month from now? You got to walk in and get a restraining order, bang, right now. And the bottom line is, look at what they did in Seattle. Black Lives Matter sued the city of Seattle, so they appeared in court, subjected themselves to the jurisdiction. They had the ACLU on their side, and they had Perkins Coie, that well-known law firm, right? And what they did is they got a federal judge to sign a temporary restraining order on the spot. Bang, we're done. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have a hearing to see if that should stay or be lifted. And that was against the police department and preventing them from using tear gas in peaceful protest. Now, the language of that order said, well, we're not going to stop you from using it, but you have to focus it on the most egregious behavior. Okay, wonderful. But the point is, effectively, they stopped the city from using tear gas. Now, the 14-day TRO from June 12th goes to June 26th. There was no hearing on the 26th. I've been following that line, and the only thing that appeared was July 9th. 4 different lawyers appeared on behalf of the city. They filed a notice of appearance, and it said, okay, we hereby appear, take notice. So what does that mean? That the city never went in and opposed this? Holy cow, Batman. Wow. I was going to
Yeah,
use
well,
stronger language, but I'm behaving myself.
so the officials that are able to do that apparently were told to stand down. So that therein lies. It's up to you and I, farmer, citizens that
Right? Or the
care that.
mayor just decided that.
Yeah. So I mean, I
I
don't
agree.
know why this is going on, but it's going to be
Okay.
in our hands to take back the country. That's the bottom line. and you're a lawyer,
Good
so
point. But let me tell you, hang on a second, Diamond, hang on. My point was that the other side jumps in and gets a TRO, temporary restraining order, bang, on the spot. How come nobody is representing the people of 300 million Americans that are being impacted by this, having their constitutional rights plowed under with no opposition? Yet if you go to stand up for yourself and stop rioters from burning your building down, creating an autonomous zone, which is laughable, with open semi-automatic weapons, rapes, robberies, and shootings, those police are stopped because somebody's jumping in to do it. Why is nobody jumping in for Americans? That's the question I have. And that was the point I'm making. So you've got a couple of lawyers making motions that, oh, our constitutional rights, this is unconstitutional, calling it an emergency motion, and it's going a month later. That's not an emergency. If the guy gets wheeled into the hospital bleeding to death, you don't say, well, we'll deal with him next week. These are irreparable damages happening. It's outrageous. People are killing themselves. They're suiciding. Their businesses are closed. They're being evicted from their houses and apartments. And what are they supposed to do? They're getting their $600 a month from the federal government. Where are they going to live when that stops? What are we going to have? Homeless masses. So they're stratifying the economy. You're going to have the haves and the have-nots, the wealthy and the poor. The middle class is being eviscerated, again, intentionally.
well, let's go deeper. Let's go deeper
Okay?
because this is just the beginning of what you just said. The effects, the
Okay?
foreclosures, the starvation, that's not going to happen towards the election when people really start to suffer. Because to be honest, when you said $600 a month, no one's getting that
A
unless
week.
unless you had a legitimate job that taxes were taken out of. If you're getting paid under the table, this doesn't apply to you. If you didn't
Right.
pay taxes last year, you're screwed. That's millions of people. So let's just say 5 million
Right.
people don't even qualify for the $1,200 check and the next $1,200 check. They don't even qualify. So what we're going to see moving towards the election is a huge group of hungry people. Uh, uh, People that had legitimate small businesses that lost everything because they're trying to stay open and it's impossible. I mean, the repercussions are absolutely mind-numbing, in my opinion.
I agree. You're right. But there is a little hope in there, and you may have missed this, and I caught this, and this is interesting. It varies by state, but if you file for unemployment, even a self-employed person, okay, what you have to do, here's the game. You have to qualify, and you work your numbers for even $1 a week from the state, and then you qualify.
You just got cut off. You get $1 from the state, and then you qualify for what?
For 600 a week from the government.
Okay, cool.
So if you squeeze the numbers, self-employed, and there you go. So they will backdate that, giving you a large chunk rather than, okay, you start now. No, you start from, COVID attack when they shut down the country from then till now. But I think all this bullshit stops at the end of July. So if the listeners are interested, give it a shot. I've been thinking about doing it myself. I could use an extra 600 a week, especially if you're going to throw me a big chunk from, March. That would be sweet. But I don't know. I'm in Florida, so I looked at it. I might be able to do it, but you got to look at your state. You could do it online, tinker with the numbers, calculate what the minimum is, and just make sure you qualify for $1 a week or one. You know what I mean? Of state unemployment, and then you qualify, bang, for 600 a week from the federal. That's pretty cool. Just telling you, even if you're self-employed, right?
Now let's talk about some of these personal protection loans, small business loans that were delved out for COVID-19 that have completely incensed me. The Roman Catholic
Mm.
Church has claimed almost $3 billion worth of this, which would be almost like, a third of the total
I'm
money.
laughing, man.
A
We don't
third
have
of the
video.
total
I'm
money.
leaning back,
Yeah.
grinning like an idiot. Oh
A
my God.
third
Yeah.
of the total money. And then all of the small businesses that actually need the money, they then never got it because it got all sucked up in the first 12 seconds. So, I
Right.
mean, this, and then let's talk about the treason issue. Like, can this be construed as treason if we have multiple countries worldwide, the whole world working together from the progressive side to move everyone to one world progressive government through the UN? That's their back door. Is that a treasonous act to try to create a one world government? And that will be their argument in a court of law.
Okay, I like the thinking. I would argue that the way you make that a treasonous act is if these are public officials who have taken an oath to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution, and they are undermining it, then they violated their oath. And I said this to you last time we spoke, we didn't record it, that could constitute treason. You're saying, well, that's a push. I'm like, yeah, but you could argue it's subversion, it is sedition, and that if you're working with a foreign power to, overthrow the government, they're trying to take out Trump. But even if they're violating their oath on the Constitution, they should be removed from office. I would argue that is treason. The next step is they take an oath to uphold the law. So when you have a de Blasio or police commissioners stepping down or mayors not enforcing the law, they have violated that oath. So they violated two. They need to be removed. You could do it criminally, and I am debating and looking into whether or not this can be done civilly and get it.
They cut you off at civilly, Farmer. I apologize. Are you there?
Okay, civilly,
Yeah.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Audio. All right. Civilly, function against these people or a writ of mandamus removing them from office for violating their oath to uphold the Constitution and uphold the law, because the Justice Department on a federal level is a joke. Okay, they're not prosecuting shit. And gee, isn't that curious? I've got issues with Billy Boy Barr. All right, so this has to go into civil court.
All right. So
But if they're going to
let's
try
do.
and facilitate a foreign government, well, hold on, man. If they're going to facilitate a foreign government, the New World Order being run out of Belgium or the EU or wherever they're going to call this from, the UN, then they are undermining our Constitution and our sovereignty. Period. It
Indeed. Yeah.
violates their oath to uphold the Constitution.
All right.
Right?
So let's do a shout out here. If there's a single pro bono constitutional lawyer listening, or someone that's married to them, or is their father or their friend, we need you to contact the channel, oppenheimerranch at gmail.com. You can contact Farmer Jones. You can contact me through Patreon. There's links below all my videos, oppenheimerranch at gmail.com. If you're a constitutional lawyer and you want to pick up these cases, you have two of the most learned people on the events going on. We can corroborate and we can make something happen. How do you feel about that, Farmer?
That's the right attitude, but I would open that up a little wider. You don't have to be a quote constitutional lawyer. I don't know what that means. What you need to be is a litigator who understands how to fight hard, and I'll work with you and show you some techniques, but you have to be able to go in for a TRO. You go in with what we call an order to show cause, which reverses the burden of proof, and it makes the other side show cause why an order shouldn't be granted, rather than you starting the case saying, okay, I'm suing you, I have to prove my case. You have to make your case initially to the judge that this is egregious and there is irreparable damage. The judge will sign an order staying them, a temporary restraining order. They have to come in and show why that should not stand. So that's kind of a clever little brutal trick. So that's the first layer, but you don't need to be a constitutional lawyer. As a tax lawyer is one thing. There's a lot of guys who will have a nervous breakdown if they walk into court. You don't want those guys. And it doesn't have to be pro bono, because there's a lot of different ways to get paid here. Okay?
Oh
There's
my
RICO
God,
claims we could go on against Black Lives Matter.
dude,
What, you lose me?
no, I could set up a Indiegogo or a crowdfunding site, and we could get $1 million in a month,
Right.
guaranteed. So if you're listening
Exactly.
and you're not busy and you're a lawyer, we have counsel that can back you up. So let's get this done. I like this. We're going a
Right.
little long here. How
Yeah,
can
but
we
hold on a second.
go ahead? How can we
Even
finish up the
you're breaking
show?
up.
Let's finish up the show on an excellent note. So just bring them all back together and let's sum it up in an excellent way. Capiche?
They're blocking us. Oh no, I couldn't hear you. I lost the
I
last
said let's
15 seconds, man.
let's sum it up in a really concise way so we can get someone to contact us.
Yeah, that's it. So if you're a lawyer, you're interested in learning or finding out, get hold of Diamond there, and you can get hold of me. And he's going to put my contact info in the underlying notes. Come over to my channel, check it out. I talk about this a lot. Now, I got to say one other thing before we wrap it. We got a couple more minutes, right? How far into it are we? Because I want to get your thoughts on another important issue. And that is, how do we, the people, organize protests along the same ways that we need to go petition, idiot, or protest mayors, governors, city councils, and rock and roll? Because I believe there are millions of people that are at the boiling point that are enraged with the bullshit, tyrannical stuff that is being imposed on them by these assholes.
Yeah,
That's
well,
a
I would.
legal term, by the way.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. There's probably 150 million people worldwide that are pissed. Most of our
You
viewers
mean
are,
nationwide?
yeah, nationwide. I'm
Nationwide.
sorry, nationwide,
World
U.S.
worldwide
We're,
there's more. Exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
we're talking probably 3 billion worldwide, but that's another
Right.
podcast. So what we can do is if
Right.
we can get a lawyer to start litigating this, and we can start legally addressing it, state by state, where these protests have occurred, or just in all 50 states, that would be great. Because right now there are, I think, 23 states with a face mask unconstitutional mandate where they are pushing on America medical advice that is unproven, unfactual, never been done before, and everyone is following these rules. It's almost like you got to paint your body purple and stick a cork in your ass because farts are dangerous. Could
Right.
you imagine if everyone was doing that? So once we can start attacking this through litigation, then we can start organizing professionally. I believe that I have enough time to set out a good framework that we could send out across the country to organize legally assumed, family oriented, all inclusive marches that for people that are concerned about their civil liberties and their constitutional rights and their freedoms as Americans. And I believe that we can do this in a peaceful way. And I guarantee we can do it that way based on my past
Right.
experience in organizing marches. It just takes a one sheet page of rules to follow, and everyone can do it. And then once we have everyone on the page, we have to all move at once. So let's say sometime in the fall, a few months before the election, let's say maybe in August or early September, we organize these marches to happen in every major city, and we do it peacefully, and we address our grievances against the government while the litigation is going on. And it all happens simultaneously. And we are all then relieved from the nonsense that is escalating quickly. If we do not start to fight back, this escalation of nonsense is going to continue.
Yeah, you're right. And it's over because it's getting way stupid out there. You know that. And I mean, there's people being forced who wouldn't take the COVID test. They wanted to travel. They were alleged to have been in the presence of somebody who may have had COVID. They wanted to do the test. They refused the test. They basically put the woman in her house and put ankle bracelets on her and her kids and said, you are allowed 200 feet to move from the house. Otherwise, the police will come and arrest you. Okay, what kind of bullshit is this? This is not American. This is Gestapo shit. And you know that they're talking about now testing people if they're going interstate. You have to be quarantined. I know New York is playing that game. But what happens when you have checkpoints? You're driving from Florida into Georgia into South Carolina. You're going from Colorado into New Mexico or into California or Nevada. Wherever they're going to stop people at the borders. Your papers, please. This
Yeah.
is not going to get better. You
Well,
heard the story, and I think I sent you the link. Oh, hang on. This is crazy. In Arkansas, and people need to know this. This is outrageous. where the governor announces that he's going to have the state National Guard assist people. First, it was put out as transport people to an isolation area for COVID, an undisclosed location. Oh, but wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's get crazy with this. This is fucked up because now the family can't visit them because they might get COVID or might give COVID, but you don't know where it is. If they magically die, and we know it's going to be written up as COVID, what happens then? What if these are people that don't have resources? I want to see the body. Well, how are you going to force that to happen? You're seeing the death certificate. It is an official document that they have given instructions on how to falsify. I've got a problem with that.
Yeah,
Now, they're
you're
going to paint the
probably not,
face on that. Wait a
you
minute,
think,
wait. Well, they're going to paint the face on that it's all good and safe. See, the kids are playing, but what happens next week? Now suddenly more people start going. What happens when they're children? They report them dead, but what happens if they disappear out the back door? What happens if family can't get hold of the body? You know what I mean? This is a nightmare. This is a death camp potential. Not saying it is now, but they're setting it up. It is a tiny antenna of a giant monster under the surface of the water that is like a four-dimensional spiritual evil creature. And people not stopping this is bullshit. This is not
well,
America. This is
listen,
Gestapo land.
listen, Farmer, this has been allowed since March in New York, where they took your family members into the hospital and you weren't allowed to see them while they convinced them to get intubated for their safety when 95% of the people that were intubated die. And they didn't tell them that. It's for their safety, so to help them breathe. So this is just an extension of that to the
I
next.
understand that.
This is the next level. Now you go to a camp where you don't even know where the camp is. Before you knew where the hospital was, you couldn't go in. Now it's a camp where you don't even know where it is. So
Right,
how could you ever go in? So they're just
right,
separating us further and further from the truth when they can do anything they want with
right.
the patient, quote unquote.
No, they can't. They want to, but they can't.
Could you imagine if we
And
litigated
unless people step up,
all of the illegal deaths that Governor Cuomo was responsible for putting elderly people back into those nursing homes? Could you imagine if we litigated all that? How many decades it would take? Just think about all the
it
litigation
wouldn't take decades. It
potentials here.
would not take
That's
decades.
six.
And I'm
That's
amazed.
six
Yeah,
thousand cases.
I think it's more. I think it's 10, maybe more. But my point is, where the hell are the lawyers? Why aren't they having a carnival field day with this? Because what happened is Cuomo, and I saw this on TV, and he said, well, I'm not going to play politics with this. And he reads the instructions or notification from the CDC authorizing and encouraging and directing that these people should be returned to nursing homes. So that's his defense. Hey, I was following the rules. And then because he's not playing politics, of course, he says, and this Republican, this is Donald Trump's administration. So these are their rules. So, I'm not going to play politics, right? Too cute for words. I don't care. Whoever made that ruling is grossly criminally negligent at the least, right? That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, at the least. All right. So if there's anyone out there that is a lawyer that wants to take up any of these constitutional cases, please contact me or Farmer Jones in the near future. We're going to continue this dialogue. Breaking news: people are fucking stupid, and a new study reveals that most people are dumb as shit. And I have the headline up right now. So let's close this up in a positive way. Farmer Jones, always a pleasure to have on your show. We're going to get some contacts in the morning. I guarantee there'll be some emails at Oppenheimer Ranch
Great.
at gmail.com. We want to start some cases in cities near you against these constitutional infractions against the human populace. At the same
Oh,
time,
I
there's
lost you. I put my
a
video on. I
dozen
think it sucked up bandwidth.
there's a dozen or more states where there are governors that are allowing criminal activity to continue in their cities, and our president. So you said, where are all the lawyers? Well, at least Trump came in, sent the feds out to try to stop some of this criminal activity. And I think that that's a great sign that things are happening. In 5 minutes, let's sum it up, Farmer.
Yeah,
Yeah. And as soon as I turn my mic
Twitter.
off,
You remember David Hogg, right? He puts this out, and you see this Antifa guy getting picked up. I think he was in Portland, and the two guys in fatigues carry him off. There was no fuss, there was no resistance. And they go into an unmarked SUV and they disappear. The question is, was that staged? Is that real Homeland Security or DHS? Or is that Soros provocateurs the way that they did in Ukraine and other countries, and they hire snipers to shoot people on both sides because they're playing politics saying, get your federal thugs out of here. So are those the real feds doing it, or are these fake feds, or who knows? But there's a big problem constitutionally. Trump cannot order National Guard from a federalized position to go invade cities unless he is requested by the governor. If he does, it's a violation of the 10th Amendment and it is an impeachable offense. The only way he can do that is by declaring martial law, suspending the Constitution, and declaring a state of emergency and proceeding. Okay, so he has to be careful. He knows this. It's frustrating as shit for us. And the Justice Department is not prosecuting these mayors and governors, allowing this lawless criminal behavior for not upholding their oath to uphold the Constitution and to enforce and uphold the law. That's our problem. They got a single point failure system, and Billy Boy is sending out memos saying, keep a lookout for this. Oh my God. So we have to rise up as we the people, 10,000 people in the street, 10 million people like the yellow vests in France and all over Europe, which we didn't get coverage over here. They hid that from us. Well,
well,
we pull the same stunt without yellow vests. We win,
they didn't hide it too good because the people in
right?
my community came to my ranch and gave me yellow vests because they know it's coming, and it's still coming. Guys, we're organizing. We are going to fight back. This is not the end of the empire. This is the beginning of the new constitutional freedoms that Americans are going to experience. If you're a lawyer, contact us soon. Farmer Jones, always a pleasure. Get some sleep. I know it's late out there. And check out the comet,
Nah, I'm good. I got to go eat.
for goodness sake. All right, we'll be in
Where's the
touch.
comet, man? I love that.
It's just below and
Thank
left of the
you,
Big
Diamond. Good
Dipper.
stuff.
Look northwest. We love you, Farmer.
I
Be
will.
safe.
Thank you, man. This is important stuff. Great stuff. Thank you, Diamond. All right.
Some of the most
Speak soon.
important stuff. And we'll talk soon. Ciao. Boom.